Welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM, AM 1490, Brattleboro's News Talk Station. 11 degrees out there now.
Whoa.
Whoa.
It got warm.
And 22 after the hour. Welcome to my next guest, Wendy Levy from the Commons.
Morning.
Good morning. And I'm your host, Olga Peters. And just a little FYI, Brattleboro Community Television is in the studio today, filming today's segment. That will be online later today. And broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight on BCTV is sponsored by the Brattleboro Savings and Loan.
You can see how fabulous we look later. Now you just get to hear it.
Yes, it will be the whole package later today.
Well, at least sort of from the waist up. I'm wearing shoes.
Well, that's good.
I'm
I'm wearing red glitter slippers.
I love your red glitter slippers.
I do too. They make work days so much easier.
Yes.
Ribbon cutting today, talking about wonderful things that sparkle.
Cut some ribbon over at the Central Fire Station on Elliott Street here in Brattleboro.
Starting at 3 p.m.
Yeah, I heard there's going to be cake.
Knowing the fire department, there will be cake.
Oh, does the fire department love cake?
Yes.
Well, then I love the fire department because a friend of cake is a friend of mine.
Yeah. So, Wendy, have you had a chance to see the new firehouse yet?
Not yet. I know today.
Me neither.
I mean, I've seen it from the outside. But
it got bigger.
It got bigger. Yeah, it's like, oh, this building. What? Oh, it goes up there now too. Mm-hmm. But no, I haven't been inside. I'm really looking forward to getting a tour. I think Randy's been inside, maybe, but I could be wrong. I don't want to spread fake news. So are you going to be there?
I'm going to try to make it, yes.
Oh, I hope to see you there.
I do too.
It's nice to see you out in the field.
I know. I don't get out very often. I just hide in my studio and then go home and hide.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm all for the hiding. But yeah, this has been a long process for the fire department, as you know, because, when you were still writing for the newspaper on a regular basis, you were covering all those issues that the fire department had with that station that, didn't have good air for the firefighters in there. And, where are they going to put all their equipment and the trucks? And, what a pain. Mm-hmm. And it took a really long time for the townspeople to finally decide, okay, we're going to fund this. And it's been under construction. Oh, when did it start? Last spring?
Was it 17 months?
Is that how long it took?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I
not quite
came
2
in,
years, but pretty close to it.
Okay, because I came into covering Brattleboro partway through the construction of that fire station. In fact, I wasn't even covering Brattleboro technically when they did the ribbon cutting on the Western Avenue station.
Ah, okay.
I just went to that just because, Randy said, oh, go to that. So I did, but I wasn't even really covering Brattleboro at that point. And so, yeah, I mean, they've been making steady progress on it. What I have been able to report in the paper this past year or so, is when Peter Elwell, who's our town manager in Brattleboro, when he would give the reports at the select board meeting on the progress they were making. And it seemed to go really smoothly.
Given how painful getting to the point of okaying the projects was, I think these projects went really smooth.
Yeah, I guess that's a blessing. Yeah, especially because of all of the mishigas that they had to deal with to get there. Yeah, it's nice that the construction went pretty well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Looking forward to seeing all the firefighters, and I hope they're wearing their fancy dress uniforms because I always like those.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it'll be good, and I really hope a lot of people come out and take the tour because this is the time when you can. This is the time when when they've set aside, when they know, okay, we're going to have a lot of visitors, so they won't be doing other things.
Mm-hmm. It'll be, what I'm looking forward to seeing is, of course, everything's bigger. Mm-hmm. They changed how the fire trucks exit the building and how they enter Elliott Street, which I think is huge.
Yeah, that is huge. Absolutely.
But I'm really looking forward to just the health and safety changes.
I know. Yeah, that now we can take better care of our firefighters who are taking good care of us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, thinking about all the huge fires that have happened downtown in the last, a little over 20 years, starting with the Paramount building, which happened before I moved here. That was like 1990, I think, or early 91.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of blocks downtown have suffered some damage. So, yeah. So I think this is good.
It is, and I think one thing people forget is there's so much the fire department does besides fighting fires, and so one
That's
thing they
true.
needed space for was not just the fire trucks, but they have a boat for river rescues.
I've seen the boat.
They
Yeah.
have a brush fire truck that fights just small brush fires.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like a little tanker truck.
Mm-hmm.
So they had other things they needed to find space for
Mm-hmm.
besides just the fire trucks that go after the big things like Brooks House.
Right. And I'm still learning about firefighting as we've discussed in previous episodes. But I understand that the fire department goes out on calls that aren't necessarily even related to fire, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, so take this with a grain of salt, the majority of the full-time firefighters in
Mm-hmm.
Brattleboro are also paramedics.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if they all have that level or if there's some EMTs and
Mm-hmm.
some other levels in there, but yeah, they've all received medical training as well as their fire training.
Well, that makes sense. Also to support each other
Hmm.
during major fires. So, yeah. So, yay, fire department.
So that ribbon cutting is happening at 3 p.m. and doors are open till 7 if you want a tour. You
Oh,
can go by
yeah.
and check out the new place, and you can see the clean walls that are not covered in diesel soot.
That
And
picture that you took was so great.
I know for the iconic photo, all Chief Bukasi did, he was giving me a tour of the old fire station. And to me, the walls looked fine in the downstairs bay. I didn't really,
You didn't notice.
I didn't
You
notice
didn't have
anything.
anything to compare it to. Yep.
And then he just went over with his finger and went across this, it's like subway tile wall,
Mm-hmm.
and then held up his finger, and it was just soot covered.
Yeah.
And there was
And it
this
left
bright green. I was like, oh, the walls are bright green.
Oh, is that what color they are? Yeah, that was a great photograph.
Yep, that summed it
Yeah.
up right there.
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to not seeing water stains all over the ceilings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they used to, because they were trying to track the leaking and keep the building up as well as they could. You'd often go in and someone had taken a Sharpie and drawn around the original leak
Oh, wow.
to see how long it spreads. And by the time I got there, it was usually like, a foot beyond the original
Wow.
Sharpie mark.
So it looked like a Holstein cow on the ceiling with all
It
these
did.
black blobs.
It kind of did. It
Oh.
wasn't pretty.
Well, I don't think it's going to look like that anymore, but we'll find out today.
We will.
And so will the listeners. Go and see. Are there water stains coming out of the ceiling? Are the walls covered in soot? I'm going to say probably not.
Wendy and I will return after the break. We're back with Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM. AM 1490, Brattleboro's news talk station. 11 degrees out there, 38 past the hour, and I am your host, Olga Peters. Wendy and I are about to talk about changes in the Putney town, namely the town clerk has just resigned.
And treasurer.
And treasurer,
Yeah,
right.
she
She
held
had a dual position. But we're going to start it with a little bit of a disclaimer. As some of you savvy news people may know out there, the Reformer recently printed a letter from the town clerk, verbatim, and you didn't see the same letter in the Commons, and there's a reason for that.
You didn't see any letter in the comments, actually.
And the reason for that is the clerk's legal representative passed the letter to the Commons.
Actually, that's not true.
Oh, it didn't come from him?
Well, he made the offer to the Commons. He didn't send the letter. He said,
Okay.
I have this letter from the town clerk
Okay.
treasurer, and if you want to print it, you have to agree to not make any edits or do fact checking on it.
Right. And
Nothing.
that just goes against the Commons policies that even for something like The Voices, Jeff Potter does try to fact check them and does often open up a collaborative editing process for issues around clarity with the writer, which was also offered.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was offered, and that was the framing that he put it in his response to Proctor was, this most of the time when I do edits, it has to do with clarity. And, Jeff's an editor and he's good at what he does, and he wants to help make sure that what the person is trying to say gets conveyed well in print.
So that was not found acceptable to the representative.
To the attorney Fletcher Proctor. So we never got a copy of that letter.
Okay, and that's why we'll not see it in the comments.
It's also not a matter of public record. That, as far as I know, at least up until the most recent select board meeting.
Now that it's in the Reformer, it is very public record.
But it wasn't until then.
Yeah.
It wasn't before then, and it wasn't submitted to the select board members or the town manager.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that it wasn't read into the record. Her resignation letter was, which was very brief. It was just a couple sentences saying, I'm tendering my resignation effective, I think midnight March 6th or midnight March 7th, whenever town meeting day is. So she's not resigned right now. She's resigned effective, about a month from now. I just want to make that really clear. She is still officially Putney's town clerk and treasurer. She hasn't been to work since May 26th.
And so at this point, where does this leave the town of Putney?
It leaves them right now with no town clerk or treasurer.
Okay.
And it has
going
been that
into
way.
election season.
Going into election season. There already has been some elections. I think there were some school board elections. So the thing that Putney does have, though, is they do have some people who either have worked or currently work in the town offices who can help out with that. So Assistant Town Clerk Barb Taylor, who's worked in those town offices for quite some time, she was able to help out. And then Anita Coombs, who formerly, up until this past town meeting, was the town clerk and treasurer, she has stepped in and she's been helping out with elections. And I believe she'll be helping out with town meeting. But there's a reason why there's a main town clerk and treasurer and there's assistants. It shouldn't be the same person.
Right.
And so it's been difficult for the town offices to get all the things done that they need to. But, Anita and Barb are doing the best that they can.
So what happens in March when this resignation becomes official? Will there be an election for a new town clerk treasurer, or is Putney going forward to make that an appointed position?
There has been a petition submitted that had the required number of signatures. It was approved to put something on the agenda, on the warning for town meeting to enact, I think it's Title 17, Act 27, that was passed this year. Strangely enough, this act was passed by the legislature about 2 weeks before the town clerk and treasurer abandoned her post.
Huh.
So this new act allows voters at town meeting to change the town clerk treasurer position from elected to appointed, which means it'll be overseen by the select board. That person is hired by the select board, they're managed by the select board, and they can be let go by the select board.
Which is how Brattleboro has their arrangement with the town clerk.
Is that true? Okay, yeah. And some towns do have that in their charters, but Putney doesn't have a charter. A lot of towns don't have charters. Had they had it in their charter, then it would have covered it. So it really depends. I mean, that's the tricky thing, and I haven't really gotten into that yet in talking to any of the public officials in Putney or the Secretary of State's office, because here's the question. So the town clerk and treasurer has resigned. So as of the day after town meeting, there's no town clerk treasurer. There's an article on the town meeting warning saying, should we make these positions appointed? Actually, it'll be by Australian ballot. I just wanted to note that. So it's not going to be discussed on the floor, but they will be having a public information meeting. I don't know the date yet. Anyway, so what if that doesn't pass? What if townspeople don't want that to be an appointed position? What if they want to maintain that as an elected position?
Vernon is an elected position, for example.
Okay, so then where does that leave the town? Will they have to have a special election? Will they have to try to find somebody to run for those offices? Because there's nobody on the ballot for those positions this year. So it could leave them in a really interesting limbo.
Yeah.
But, if they got enough people to put it on the ballot, and just because you sign a petition to have something put on the ballot doesn't mean you want to vote for it.
Right.
But I think generally, if you want it on the ballot, you probably agree with it. So maybe it won't happen, but I think that's a really interesting legal issue. And I think it's one of those things that may cause some of the Secretary of State people for their hair to fall out if this were to come up. Because I'll tell you, when I called them late last year, a handful of months ago, when I learned about the town clerk treasurer abandoning her post, I thought, what are they supposed to do?
Right.
So I called the Secretary of State's office and I was like, hey, folks, like, you've probably seen this before. What does a town do? It was like stump the Secretary of State's office. They had never heard of that before.
I have to admit, I mean, not that my journalistic experience goes deep into Vermont, but I've never heard of such a thing either.
I guess I'm just really surprised. Maybe it's because I'm not from here. Like, I just figured, like people must abandon their post. They must just decide they don't want to do it anymore. Come on, that's had to happen. But, points for Vermonters for taking a job on and sticking with it.
Or at least if they decide to step away, they follow.
Right, they resign.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that is really important to note here, and I've said this before when we talked about it, and I've said it before in my articles, there's no recall mechanism for an elected official. There was no way that townspeople could say, we want to get rid of her. You have to wait till her term ends, and her term was for 3 years. It wasn't set to expire till 2020. That really puts the town in a difficult position, regardless of the merits of why she decided to not go to work. Like, I don't want to disparage her. She may have had really good reasons. I haven't been able to talk to her directly, so I haven't been able to fact check those.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, you're leaving the town in the lurch with no recourse. And if you hate the job, or if it's not working out for you, or if it wasn't what you thought it was when you ran for it, because that supposedly is part of it, then why don't you just resign or go to work and try to try to enact some change? But you can't just not show up.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I admit that's a question I've had about this situation, and maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't. But I guess I've never understood why the clerk just left and never did anything like officially resign or
ask for medical leave.
Yeah, like I don't understand that part.
I don't understand it either.
Okay.
And I'm not her. She might have reasons that were we in that situation would make total sense to us.
Right.
But without any information, or without information that's clear, that's coming from her, where we're allowed access to her, where we can ask her questions like, oh, well, that's really interesting. Can you explain? It's hard to report on her side. And I don't think, and this is where I'm going to really editorialize. I don't think that by having your lawyer demand that you print a letter without any opportunity to fact check it or to edit it for clarity, or to ask, to follow up and say, what do you mean by that? Is that what really happened? Because this information I have over here isn't consistent with what you're saying. We don't have much to go on. And that's what's been really difficult in covering this situation.
Yeah, it's been, as far as information goes, it's been a bit of a black hole.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I tried reaching out to the town clerk treasurer, a couple times just to say, like, I really want to give you the chance to explain, and I never heard back. And so,
Nothing.
Maybe at some point when some time has passed, maybe I will hear from her. I would like to talk to her, because throughout all this whole thing, I'm thinking, is this person okay? Because to do something like that, that's a pretty drastic move, and it makes a person wonder, is she all right?
Right.
Is her health okay? What's going on? So yeah, but meanwhile, now the town can move on.
Well, and that's what it's been trying to do.
Yes.
For quite a few months.
Yes, and now they can. So there is an article in this week's Commons. It's on the front page. I believe it's above the fold, with a story about that, with my byline. So you can read all about it. And, I don't know if folks know that in the online version of the Commons, you can comment on the individual articles.
You have to use your real name.
You do. And if you don't, we'll know.
Because we've had people try that before and we found them.
Yep, and it didn't work. So yeah, comment away. I think sometimes Jeff prints those in as letters.
Yeah, he will sometimes do that.
So you can get your name in the paper, and you don't even have to do anything bad.
Wendy, thank you so much for these updates. I look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks.
I'll be here.